We'll talk a little bit about that in just a few moments. You've described the American response to the COVID pandemic in 2020 as quote-unquote disastrous. I've got the exact paragraph out. Why do you say that?
Well, everyone expected the United States to set a good example. We have a strong set of experts in the Center for Disease Control, but we didn't move quickly to get diagnostics out, and so it spread throughout the population. The really positive exemplars in this case are countries like Australia, where even though they have a lot of travelers from China, because they worked with the commercial diagnostic business and they had good quarantine policies, they caught the disease very early. And so they have about 10% of the deaths of the United States. So it's interesting to think, why were they better? Partly the earlier SARS-CoV-1 made them think about diagnostics. And so that idea of drilling in advance and practicing how you get out the diagnostics, Australia illustrates that's a best practice that we ought to get everybody to be good at that, to be ready for the next pandemic.
Let me quote something that's more relatable, closer home. And you've written, "I admit to having been surprised, as many people were, by the size of the Delta wave in India in mid-2021. It was partly the result of wishful thinking, the mistaken idea that the country could relax because it had contained the virus in the early days of 2020. Another explanation is sadly ironic. Countries that do the best job of suppressing the virus early on will be susceptible to later surges." Can you explain this a little bit? Because it seems to be a bit counterintuitive.
Yes, if you have people who've never been infected, then they are more likely, when they do get infected, to get very, very sick. So, you have previous infection is protective, and vaccination is protective. And, the first variant we saw was Beta. That emerged in South Africa when the foundation was funding vaccine trials. That was only slightly worse. Delta was a surprise to us, and if you look at that, case curve, which we know because India was doing a lot of testing, it rose so fast, that was kind of unbelievable. And so a lot of people got infected with Delta. That's part of the reason India has had less of an Omicron wave, because you had good work on vaccination, and Delta infection slowed the spread. Many countries, Omicron has been there, like the Delta wave was to India, the Omicron wave was to most of the countries around the world. It's a unbelievably infectious variant, and hopefully the last word in terms of how transmissive this virus can become.
Indeed. What did India